The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Next up on the slate of games is the 6-1 Chicago Bears traveling to the 3-5 Tennessee Titans, who came off of a heartbreaking loss last week at home at the hands of the Indianapolis Colts. If you are the Titans, that one hurt. That one stung last week because you were riding a wave of wins and building momentum that you hadn't had this season to this point. The success that you were starting to get was building momentum on this football team, and you were doing it without the services of your starting quarterback, your young quarterback, Jake Locker. You had a veteran quarterback in Matthew Hasselbeck who was taking you down the field and scoring points. Last week you didn't do that. You didn't score points. You only scored 13 last week. And as we know in the National Football League, most times 13 will not be enough to win you a football game. You have to be able to score points. And for the first time in about 3 weeks, you weren't able to score last week. And Andrew Luck and that Indianapolis Colts team, they just came out and they did just enough to win that football game. So now if you're the Titans, you pick yourself up and you staring the Chicago Bears, the 6-1 Chicago Bears, in the face. They're coming to Tennessee, winners of 5 straight. And they're playing really good football. They haven't lost since week 2 of the season. And they've been really taking it to teams on the defensive side of the football, forcing turnovers, using those turnovers to generate offense immediately. The defense is scoring points. And so if you're the Titans, you have to eliminate the mistake that allows this Bears defense to get in the end zone and generate offense for this team. If you're going to lose this game, if you're the Titans, you say, look, you're going to have to beat me with your own offense. We're not going to give you offense on the defensive side of the football. You're going to have to beat us with your own offense. If you can do that, tip my imaginary cap to you. But if you can't, then you're going to come into Tennessee and be in for a rude awakening. Because as of late, this Chicago Bears offense has been relying heavily on the Chicago Bears defense to generate points. And I think they're starting to get used to the Bears on defense, scoring points, helping them out, and taking a lot of pressure off of them. And it's been working. It's been a good formula for success. But how long can that last? At some point, the Bears offense is going to have to start scoring points on their own. 13 points from this Bears offense isn't going to be enough to win a lot of football games. They're going to have to start scoring 20 and 24 and 27 points on their own without the defense getting an interception and a pick six or scooping up a fumble and scoring and going the distance. They're going to have to score points on their own. Let's see if Tennessee can force them to do that. The last couple of teams have not been able to do that. Last week, Tim Jennings was able to take a pick the distance. The 2 weeks prior to that, both Peanut Tillman and Lance Briggs were able to take pick sixes into the end zone. And so the Bears have been relying on this defense to score points. Can the Titans limit the productivity of this Bears defense and make them work for it on offense? If the Titans can do that, they'll have a chance in this football game, which means they won't turn it over. Matthew Hasselbeck will continue to be consistent and steady on the offensive end as he's been in the last 3 weeks. They'll have a chance. Chris Johnson has to show up. The last couple of weeks, he's been the Chris Johnson of old. But again, we haven't seen that for a 5-game stretch since about 2 seasons ago. So can he prove to be the consistent back that the Titans need him to be, or is he going to go back to 13-carry, 34-yard Chris Johnson? We'll see. The Bears defense can do that to you. We're going to see. If you're the Bears, you just got to score points. You got to be more effective on offense, more efficient on offense. And if you're the Bears, you want to continue to have success on defense, continue to score on defense. I think the Bears are the better team here. And I thought that loss last week really deflated a lot of the momentum and a lot of the hype that the Tennessee Titans were building in their own building. Now, after losing that game to a divisional rival, to a divisional foe at home, kind of takes the air out of your sails. Now you have to try to pick up the pieces, and now you have the Bears coming into town. That's a tough team to go against, especially after suffering a defeat last week in overtime in a game that you thought you should have won. It's tough to ask the Tennessee Titans to bounce back after that loss. I think that loss last week is going to have lasting effects into this week, and the Bears are going to come into Tennessee and get a victory. Bears 26, Titans 20. Bears go to 7-1 on the season. Titans drop to 3-6 on the season. Man, is that a tough loss last week. You go from staring 500 after starting 1-4. You go from staring 4-4 and 500 on the season in the face to now possibly dropping to 3-6 on the season. What a difference 1 week can make if you're the Tennessee Titans. Next up on the docket is a game that I'm actually excited about. And 3 weeks ago, this would have probably been getting an Ugly Bowl moniker from me. But no longer is this game an Ugly Bowl matchup. This is actually a good football game that I'm really anticipating and looking forward to. And that's the 3-4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to 3-4 Oakland to take on the Raiders. All of a sudden, this is a good football game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have won 2 straight and scored a boatload of points in doing so. Now, against Kansas City, you don't get a lot of kudos for beating up on the Kansas City Chiefs. You did what you were supposed to do. At home, you beat up on the Kansas City Chiefs. But the next week, what was very impressive was that they took that same formula on the road against a Minnesota Vikings team that was undefeated at home this season, and they beat them up, scoring 34 points on that Minnesota Vikings team, handing them their first loss at home this season. Very impressive. Was very impressed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football a week ago. Meanwhile, the Oakland Raiders are winners of 2 straight. Now, their competition has not been much to speak of. They beat up on that same Kansas City Chiefs team a week ago that the Buccaneers beat up on 2 weeks ago. And then they beat up on the Jacksonville Jaguars the week before that. And I shouldn't even say beat up on, because they needed a late game Sebastian Janikowski field goal to seal that victory at the end. Nonetheless, they're winners of 2 straight. And so these teams who started off the season struggling at 1-3, both have won games of late to take their record to 3-4 and to have them knocking on the door of 500 in the season at this point in the 2012 season. And so if you're one of these teams, you have a legitimate shot if you can get back to 500. If you lose this game, you go back where you came from 2 weeks ago, which was a team struggling, trying to find their way. You win this game right here is going to be the deciding factor between which one of these teams decides to make a push and tries to make the playoffs, and what team decides to take a step back and realize that, hey, I'm not a good football team. I have a first-year head coach, which both of these teams have, and I'm still trying to find my way as a football team. So the winner of this game is going to take a step up and say, hey, I am a playoff contender right now as constructed. The team that loses this football game is going to realize, hey, I'm a team with the first-year head coach that's still trying to learn how to win football games on a consistent basis. And so I'm not ready for prime time yet. I'm not ready for the show. I'm not ready to try and punch a ticket to the dance. And so this is a big football game for both of these teams. And I really think that the better of these two teams is Tampa Bay. I feel like what they're doing on the defensive side of the football, they're limiting teams in their effectiveness on the ground. And last week, they were ran on by Adrian Peterson. But who doesn't Adrian Peterson run on? It's not often you're going to stop Adrian Peterson. But they were gassed in the run game. They didn't allow that Minnesota Vikings team to pass the football for the most part. And so, if you're Oakland, you have to find a way to sustain drives, not turn it over, because the Buccaneers forced turnovers a week ago against the Vikings. And they turned those turnovers into points. So if you're the Raiders, can't turn the football over. If you're the Raiders, you must sustain drives. You can't put your defense out there, because the Buccaneers have shown the last 2 weeks that they can score points. And if you keep putting your defense on the field repeatedly, they're going to wear down. And I tell you what, Josh Freeman is starting to get comfortable with his receiving corps. Vincent Jackson is proving to be one of the biggest offseason acquisitions of any team in the offseason. He's going out there and he's performing for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. He's changed this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. He's transformed them into a pass-heavy team. A team that can go down the field. And Josh Freeman, we all know, likes to throw the ball down the field. He has a big arm and he loves to throw it down the field. And what, again, and I've said this several times, this is going to be the last time I say this. Vincent Jackson coming in as a #1 receiver has solidified that spot, and he's put everyone else in that Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense into their proper perspective, into their proper slots. Everyone is slotted where they're supposed to be now. Mike Williams is not a #1 in this league, but he is a hell of a #2 wide receiver. And that's why the Bucs have been very, very efficient on offense this season, because they got guys who can go up and make plays, and Josh Freeman is not afraid to cut it loose anymore. He's not afraid of the ramifications that come from just throwing the football up, because he's got big receivers who can high point the football and go and make a play for him. So he trusts them now to know, I can just let it go. And it always helps when you can sprinkle in a little bit of Dallas Clark here, sprinkle in a little bit of Doug Martin there, and all of a sudden you got 34 points on the scoreboard and the other team doesn't know what just happened. And that's what Tampa Bay has been doing the last few weeks. And if Oakland isn't careful in this game, that's what can happen to them. The Raiders have won the last 2 weeks because they've taken advantage of other teams' turnovers. Bad teams self-destructing in the Raiders' presence, and the Raiders have done just enough to win football games. I don't know if that's going to happen this week or not. I can't say, because Tampa Bay has not been doing that of late, but we've seen Tampa Bay self-destruct in games before they started playing good football. And so I don't know which Tampa Bay team is going to show up. Again, that is the reason why this game is so important, because the team that wins this game is going to show that they can play consistent football over the course of a month, because both of these teams have won 2 out of 3. The Bucs have won 2 straight after coming off their bye. The Raiders are winners of 2 straight as well. And so the winner of this game is going to be able to show that I can win 3 games in a row. I can play consistent football for stretches at a time and not be the team that is inconsistent and can't string together wins. And look, these are 2 mediocre football teams, 2 young football teams, young head coaches. So if you're one of these teams, you want to be able to say, look, I can go out and beat mediocre teams. Even though you may be one yourself, it's always good to know that you can go out and beat mediocre teams. That's what these 2 teams have been able to do over the last 2 weeks. Beat mediocre teams. Now, the Vikings are 5-3 right now. So, not so much a mediocre team as the rest of these teams that they played, being the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Kansas City Chiefs. However, I think when it's all said and done, the Vikings will be mediocre as well. And so, what these 2 teams need to do in this football game is not turn it over, get consistent play out of their quarterbacks, and play sound football on special teams and defense. The team who makes the least amount of mistakes in this football game is probably going to win the game. Now, I don't know who that is going to be for sure. And normally, like I always say, when it's 2 evenly matched teams going up against each other, you go with the home team. But I think Tampa Bay slightly is the better team in this football game. And hence, I am picking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to go on the road and beat the Oakland Raiders 26-20. This is going to be a fun game to watch, because I really want to know who these teams are. I think this game is going to give me a very good indication of who these teams are. Raiders, are you for real? Do you want me to buy into the Raiders as a contender in the AFC West? Or are you the same Raiders that I've come to know and love who just aren't a good football team? I'm going to find that out on Sunday. Tampa Bay, are you the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that just a few years ago were 10-6 and knocking on the door of the playoffs? Or are you the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that got Raheem Morris fired and are still trying to find their way with some discipline under new head coach Greg Schiano? I'm going to find out on Sunday. Think I know the answer, but I'm not quite sure. So we're going to just go with Tampa Bay 26-20 over the Oakland Raiders elevating their record to 4-4 on the season, getting them to 500. Meanwhile, the Oakland Raiders kicked themselves because they had a chance to go to 500 and really cement themselves as a player in the AFC West. So we move on, and our next game on the slate sees the 5-3 Minnesota Vikings traveling to the 4-4 Seattle Seahawks in what should be a very intriguing game as well. Two teams who probably have exceeded expectations to this point in the season. The Seattle Seahawks are probably feeling a lot worse than the Minnesota Vikings are coming into this game. The Vikings had a shot at being 6-2. You get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming to you on Thursday Night Football, and you're at home, you're supposed to win that game. If you're the Minnesota Vikings, you probably feel like we let one slip away. We let an opportunity go to really give ourselves a chance in the NFC North Division. When you lose games at home to sub-500 teams, it says a lot about where you are as a football team right now. Good teams don't lose to sub-500 teams at home. So what that did was it put the Minnesota Vikings back in their proper lane. If they were driving in the fast lane for a while, and now they got to slow down. They're not a good football team to the point where you expect them to be around come playoff time. That's not where the Minnesota Vikings are. That's not where they were supposed to be when the season started. And that's not where they're going to be when this season ends. So now they're out of the fast lane, because they started this season very fast. Now they're over into the slower lane. Soon they're going to find themselves all the way over in the right lane. Right now they're in the middle lane. They still are going at a fast pace. Not as fast as they were early in the season, but they're still driving right around the speed limit. Pretty sure here shortly they're going to drop 3 of 4 or 2 of 3. They're going to find themselves right around 500, and then they'll be cruising right along in that slow lane, in that right-hand lane, where they belong. Meanwhile, the Seattle Seahawks, they're actually a good football team this year. They have a rookie quarterback, so that might be one thing that slows them down at some point in this season. But right now, they're a solid football team. Their problem is they can't win on the road, and they just have to be more consistent. One game, the offense isn't showing up. The next, the defense is letting them down. The defense has been the strong suit of this team, and their running game has been the best part of their offense. They need to combine the best of both worlds. They need to run the football, play solid, sound defense, and they'll find themselves winning a lot of games this season. Now, the one thing that the Seattle Seahawks have on their side in this game is the fact that they haven't lost at CenturyLink Field this season. They're 3-0 at home. The problem is they're 1-4 on the road. So if they can find a way to take what they do at home, which is run the football, play sound defense, force turnovers, force teams into mistakes, turn those turnovers into points, they can pack that up in a suitcase and take it with them on the road. The Seattle Seahawks team will probably make it to the playoffs in the NFC. But if they continue to struggle on the road, they're going to find themselves at 8-8, which is what teams who can't win on the road find themselves as. Mediocre teams. You can be strong at home all you want, but if you can't win on the road, you're going to be average when the season is done. And so these Vikings have a tough task in front of them because this Seattle Seahawks team has not lost at home all season long. If they want to win this game, I need to see a large quantity of Adrian Peterson and Percy Harvin. Something that they failed to do a week ago. I thought Adrian Peterson was going to be busy last week against Tampa Bay. I'm talking about 29 carries busy. I thought Percy Harvin was going to be busy. I'm talking about 12 touches busy. Neither of them got even remotely close to the amount of touches that I thought they were going to get in that game. And I think they struggled because of it. In this game, they don't have a choice. Percy Harvin needs to touch the football, and this is excluding on special teams. I'm talking about offensively. He needs to touch the football at least 10 times. Adrian Peterson needs to touch the football in some capacity. I don't care if it's a screen or just handing it off to him. He needs to touch it at least 26 times. If these things don't happen, they won't go on the road and beat the Seattle Seahawks. If these things don't happen, that means you're not sustaining drives, and that means you're asking Christian Ponder to do something that he couldn't do a week ago against Tampa Bay. Win you the football game. And if you try to ask Christian Ponder to win you the football game against this Seattle Seahawks defense at home, with the way that defense plays at home with that secondary, you're going to pay, and you're going to pay dearly. So if you're the Minnesota Vikings, you need to run the football. Run it effectively, play action fake, get the ball to Percy Harvin. Those are the three things you need to do on offense. On defense, you need to stop the run. You can't stop Marshawn Lynch. You can't beat the Seattle Seahawks at home. And on the flip side for the Seattle Seahawks, you need to stop the run. You need to stop Adrian Peterson. Make Christian Ponder beat you. If you make Christian Ponder beat you, you're going to win this football game because he's going to turn it over. He's going to make some ill-advised throws, and your defense is good enough to take advantage of those mistakes. Also, if you're the Seattle Seahawks, you need to run the football, as you've done all season, with your workhorse running back, beast mode, Marshawn Lynch. And then you need to use that to make your rookie quarterback, Russell Wilson, comfortable. Allow him to go play action fake. Allow him to make high percentage throws. You'll win the football game. And I expect you to, at home, against a Minnesota Vikings team that took one on the chin last week. And I don't know if they've really rebounded from that heavy shot that they took on the chin last week. That was a devastating loss last week at home to Tampa Bay. Don't know if they've shook off the cobwebs or not, because they have to travel a long way out to Seattle to play the Seahawks, and I just don't think they're going to be able to get it done. Seattle Seahawks 24, the Minnesota Vikings 17. Seahawks elevate their record to 5-4 in the season. Vikings drop to 5-4 on the season. Moving on to probably the marquee matchup of the Sunday afternoon games, which sees the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 4-3, traveling to the New York Giants, who are 6-2. This is going to be a good football game. Every time these two teams match up, they always talk about Ben Roethlisberger and Eli Manning, two of the three quarterbacks that were selected, that were the high-profile quarterbacks of that draft. Of course, Phillip Rivers being the other high-profile quarterback of that draft class. This is going to be a good matchup. These are two good football teams who are playing good football of late. Ben Roethlisberger is playing arguably the best football of his career. And Eli Manning, the same could be said for him. He's not really turning the football over. He's making sound decisions. He's taking his team down the field and scoring points when they need him to the most. This is going to be a very good football game. Neither one of these teams' rushing attack overwhelms you, but their passing attack makes up for more. Their passing attacks make up more than enough for the lack of running game that both of these teams sometimes have. On the defensive side, both of these teams are not as good on defense as they once were. They both can force turnovers. They both can stop you on defense, but they are not defenses that are elite anymore. And so, while the Steelers' ranking says they're elite, you look at the Steelers when they play, you'd beg to differ as to how elite this defense really is. Statistically, the Steelers get it done. But if you watch them in the course of a game, there are opportunities that are there for plays to be made by their opposition that are just not being made. Some of that has to do with the Steelers on defense. Some of that just has to do with the lack of execution by the teams that they're playing against. They can't afford to have mental lapses on defense this week, however. They had a few last week against the Redskins. Redskins weren't able to take advantage of it. They can't afford to have that happen this week. Because if they do, Eli Manning is going to take full advantage of opportunities that come his way. He hasn't been missing often. He hasn't been missing often this season. And if the Steelers allow someone to run wide open in their secondary, best believe Eli Manning is going to connect, and that's probably going to go for 7 on the scoreboard. So if you're the Steelers, you want to run the football. Jonathan Dwyer looks like he's not going to be able to play in this game, which is a tough blow to this Steelers offense because he's been coming on recently in the last 2 weeks. They are getting Isaac Redman back, but he's no Jonathan Dwyer in terms of power running. But he's a good running back to have back there if you're the Steelers. If you're the Steelers, you also want to control the game with your short passing game. Everybody's complaining about dinking and dunking. It's working. it's moving the sticks, and it's keeping the Steelers' offense on the field, sustaining drives. When you do that, you give yourself a chance to score points. When you score points, you give yourself a chance to win the football game. And that's what the Steelers have really been doing a good job of this season. Sustaining drives, not making this Pittsburgh Steelers defense have to go out and win it on its own, and not making this Pittsburgh Steelers defense have to be on the field for an inordinate amount of plays. This is an older Pittsburgh Steelers defense. They're starting to infuse younger players, but this is still a veteran-laden group. And so the less amount of snaps they're playing, the better it is for this defense. And so what they've been able to do on offense, it has really benefited the Pittsburgh Steelers defense and team as a whole. You look at the Steelers on defense, what they have to do in this game, they have to find a way to make Eli Manning uncomfortable. The best way to do that is to stop them from running the football, make them a one-dimensional team, and then, knowing that they have to pass, get in Eli's face. The best way to get pressure on Eli Manning is in his face. Eli Manning doesn't mind pressure coming from the outsides. You want to come and bring pressure? He'll just step up. He's a veteran quarterback that knows how to get it done. He doesn't mind stepping up and climbing the pocket and making accurate throws. When Eli Manning struggles is when you put pressure directly in his face. When his center is being blown back, his guards are collapsing right here, and he can feel the pressure, that's when you get no-look passes from Eli Manning. That's when you get one of these. And when you get the no-look Eli Manning special, you get a chance to make a play on defense. If you can't force Eli Manning to be uncomfortable, you won't win this game. Because Eli Manning is playing at a MVP-like level this season. Didn't have his best game last week against the Cowboys. Didn't need to. The Cowboys self-destructed enough in the first half, and in some stages of the second half, they self-destructed enough that Eli Manning didn't have to do but just enough to help his team win that game last week. This week, he knows he's going to have to be better. He knows he's going to have to do more because the Steelers aren't going to self-destruct. They're not going to hand the Giants this football game. They're going to have to work for it. So Eli Manning is going to be prepared to bring his A game. And if you're the Steelers, you have to get pressure on him in his face, make him uncomfortable. Come with that A-gap blitz. Come with that cross dog. Anything you can do to generate pressure up the middle in Eli Manning's face will benefit you. If you can't do it, don't think you're going to be able to beat the Giants. And I don't think you're going to go on the road and beat the Giants. I think the Giants are at home. They're playing really good football. They're playing confident football. That's probably the biggest thing. If they're playing confident football, they're playing like a defending Super Bowl champion right now. They have the swagger of a Super Bowl champion. And so it's hard to go on the road and beat teams that are playing just like that. But if anyone can do it, it's this Steelers bunch. But I don't think they're going to be able to do it. I have the Giants in a nail-biter, in a really good, entertaining football game, beating the Pittsburgh Steelers 24-20, dropping the Steelers back to 500 at 4-4, elevating the New York Giants to 7-2 on the season. Look, if they can force turnovers, get in Eli Manning's face, and really present problems for that Giants offense, the Steelers can and will win this game. But if Eli Manning is comfortable, because I wasn't impressed last week nor the week before with the Steelers in their pass rush. I don't think the Steelers are really getting adequate pressure on the quarterback right now. And if they can't do that against Eli Manning, I don't think they're going to win the game. And so the key to the game, get pressure on Eli Manning, make him uncomfortable, force him into mistakes. If you can do that, you got a chance to win. If you can't, the Giants will notch their 7th victory of the season. Last up on the Sunday docket of games is the Sunday night matchup, which sees the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. This game is going to make for some great theater. You got the 3-4 Dallas Cowboys taking on the 7-0 Atlanta Falcons. And you got the young upstart Atlanta Falcons who are on the rise. And you got the aging Dallas Cowboys who are running out of time. The hourglass is running out of sand. And Tony Romo isn't getting any younger. DeMarcus Ware isn't getting any younger. Jason Witten isn't getting any younger. This team and its nucleus have veterans. Tony Romo is over 30. Jason Witten is at 30. DeMarcus Ware is getting up there in age. I mean, he's still got a lot of good football left in him, but still. The clock is ticking on this Dallas Cowboys team as it is constructed right now. How long is Jerry Jones going to have patience with this team? We know he's an impatient owner. He wants it his way, and he wants it his way now. And the Dallas Cowboys haven't been giving him what he wants. And so, how long is he going to stay with this group as it is constructed right now? When is he going to decide to pull the plug on Tony Romo? Blow this thing up and start anew? It's coming soon. If the Cowboys can't get it done, they're 3-4 right now. You're going to hear all the storylines leading up to this football game. Jerry Jones' mug is going to be all over the TV. You're going to see him everywhere talking about how important this football game is. You're going to see, oh, can Romo beat Matt Ryan? You're going to see the comparisons. Are the Cowboys running out of time? That's another storyline you're going to hear. You're going to hear, are the Falcons for real? Can the Falcons get it done on prime time? You're going to hear all of these things leading up to this football game. It's going to be a very, very fun game to watch. It's going to be great theater. That's why it's going to be fun, because it's so much stuff surrounding this game that don't even have to do with football. And so you're going to enjoy everything that has to go along with this game. And then when it's actually played out on the field, it's going to be fun to watch, because you don't know what Dallas Cowboy team is going to show up. If there's any team in the National Football League that can beat the Atlanta Falcons at home in their undefeated streak, when all says they're not supposed to be able to win this game, when all the odds are stacked against them, when everything says they're supposed to lose this game, there's one team that rises to the occasion and wins this football game. Every year it seems like. The Dallas Cowboys. Every time you think the Cowboys don't think they're going to be able to win this game, they're just not a good football team. They're not this. They're not that. Can you trust Tony Romo? Are they going to be able to get it done on the road? I don't think this Cowboys team is ready. I don't think this is a good team. Every time you start to hear the voices and they're just chirping in your ear and you're like, oh, the Cowboys aren't this, not this, blah, 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 blah. And it comes to a crescendo. And you're thinking, yeah, this Cowboys team is probably not what you thought they were going to be when the season started. They rise up, and they do it once every season. That's why they don't win in the playoffs, because they usually use that one performance. They usually use it in the regular season. They only do it once a year. But this could be the time that they use it for this season. If you're the Falcons, you should be scared of this game, because the Cowboys, as every team that you've played, they have a shot to beat you. But the Cowboys are a dangerous team. When they play at the level that they're capable of playing, they're a scary team. When Tony Romo and the Dallas Cowboys aren't shooting themselves in the foot, really giving themselves self-inflicted gunshot wounds, when they're actually taking their gun and pointing it at the opposition and firing off, they're a dangerous football team. When DeMarcus Ware is getting after your quarterback, they're a dangerous football team. When Tony Romo is finding Jason Witten, Miles Austin, and Des Bryant, they're a dangerous football team. When this thing is on, it's on. But when it's bad, boy, does this thing get out of control quickly. And so you don't know what Dallas Cowboys team is going to show up. That's why this is such compelling theater. On the opposite side of the field, the Atlanta Falcons and Matt Ryan have been playing great football, as their 7-0 record indicates. They've been playing lights out football this season. Last week, they destroyed the Philadelphia Eagles on the road. And right now, they're a team that is getting it done week in and week out. They're finding ways to win. Matt Ryan has played one game this season that was bad. The rest of his performances have been good. And that was against the Oakland Raiders. He had 3 interceptions in that game, but they still found a way to win. And that's what they've been doing all season long. And if you're the Dallas Cowboys, your main objective, get to Matt Ryan. Because I don't think this Atlanta Falcons team is that good at rushing the football. They don't scare me running the football on the ground. Don't think Michael Turner really puts fear in anyone's heart. But what they do have is a two-headed monster out at receiver in Julio Jones and Roddy White. And then you sprinkle in the Hall of Fame tight end Tony Gonzalez. All of a sudden now you have to pick your poison at the receiver position. Because Matt Ryan is going to find these guys. He's going to find them often. And they're hard to stop. And if you can't stop them in their passing attack, you don't stand a chance to win the football game. On defense, this has been an opportunistic defense. They force you into mistakes. They take advantage of those mistakes, get the ball back to their offense. And we already told you how this offense is playing this year. So you don't want to turn it over. You don't want to get into that kind of contest with this Atlanta Falcons team. You won't win, especially if you're going to the Georgia Dome. You won't win. If you're Dallas, you have to find a way to limit the effectiveness of that passing attack, which means you need DeMarcus Ware and company to get after Matt Ryan. Got to have it. I don't think they're going to be able to run the football on Dallas or the Falcons. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. So if you're the Falcons, you got to pass the football on this Cowboys defense. It can be done. You have to be smart about what you do. You got to make sure you block DeMarcus Ware. Wherever he is, you need to make sure you have someone helping out if you can't block him one-on-one. And you need to identify where he is on the field at all times. He's the one guy that can change this game and help you lose this football game if you are the Atlanta Falcons. So you need to make sure he's being blocked at all times. And if you're the Falcons, on defense, your goal is to, look, there's no DeMarco Murray in this game. No reason for Felix Jones, Phillip Tanner, or any one of these other Dallas Cowboy running backs to be doing anything on you. You stop the run. Shut the run down and go after Tony Romo. We all know that if Tony Romo gets going, gets in a rhythm, he can go 31 to 39 for 317 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions on you. He has no problem doing that if you allow him to. But if you put pressure on Tony Romo, disguise your coverages, confuse him a bit, make his eyes play tricks on him, he'll give you opportunities to make plays. We've seen that. He's done that plenty of times this season. We saw what he did against the Chicago Bears. We saw what he did a week ago against the Giants. He will give you opportunities to win the football game. He will give you chances to make plays. But if you allow him to sit back there, get comfortable, and orchestrate this offense, you can be in a world of trouble. So if you're the Falcons, your main objective, stop the run, make Tony Romo beat you. After you accomplish that, go after Tony Romo. Pin your ears back, tell John Abraham and the rest of that crew, go get him. Put pressure on him, make him feel uncomfortable in that pocket, make him start running around, having to throw across his body, make him have to make decisions with the ball that maybe he would have liked to have not had to make. He's a gunslinger. He is the quintessential gunslinger in the NFL right now. He's the one quarterback that can take you out of a football game but keep you in the game at the same time. He's Tony Romo. And so if you're the Falcons, your job is to make sure that he takes the Cowboys out of the game and not help the Cowboys win the football game. And I think that's what the Atlanta Falcons are going to be able to do at home, is stop the run game, make it non-existent, make Tony Romo feel the pressure of having to defeat this Falcons offense on his own, make him have to go out and make plays. He's going to start pressing. That's when you get opportunities to make plays. You take advantage of those. You get the ball back to your offense, and you let that offense work. If you do that, I think you'll get yourself a victory at home, taking your record to 8-0, dropping the Cowboys to 3-5. I have the Atlanta Falcons getting it done on Sunday Night Football, 27-23 over the Dallas Cowboys. If there's one team in the National Football League that can go into the Georgia Dome against an undefeated Atlanta Falcons team and come out with a W against all odds, it's the Dallas Cowboys. I'll tell you that right now. They do it once every season, where you're thinking the Cowboys are finished, you stick a fork in them, you're asking a million questions about this team, can they get it done? And then they rise up to the occasion and get it done. Now, they're not going to do that again. So if they use it now, they don't have one for later. But this is when they typically use it. When they're playing against a very dominant team in that season, when no one thinks they're going to win on the road, they go out and get it done. Let's see if that is this occasion for the Cowboys this season. I just don't have them getting it done against the undefeated Falcons at home. Cowboys 23, Falcons 27. And that's going to do it for this episode of In the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me. That's a touchdown. Throw it up. I want to tack on this quick. Extra point. Now, if you were paying attention, or you weren't, you probably didn't notice that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traded Q2 for a 4th-round selection to the New England Patriots. That probably went under the radar, and it should have. The NFL extended their trade deadline by 2 days, and the NFL has the most irrelevant trade deadline of all the major sports in the United States. No one cares about the NFL's trade deadline. Teams normally don't take advantage of the trading deadline, and so who would have thought a trade would have occurred? At least one of any note. Well, one did yesterday. Patriots need help in their secondary. Even though they beat up on the Rams 45-7, the Rams did pass the ball on them. Sam Bradford went over 300 yards, did not really turn it over. 22 of like 28. He was very efficient against this Patriots offense. They just weren't able to score points. So they need help in the secondary. And you keep seeing the Patriots try to put a Band-Aid and some patchwork secondary out there on the field. And I guess they feel like they can work their Patriots mystique and exert their Patriot way onto Q2, bring him in and get him to straighten up and fly right. And normally it works. And he's a talented guy that if you can get him to focus on football, you might get this trade to pay big dividends for you. But I'm not looking at it from the aspect of the Patriots side. I want to look at it from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers side of this trade. What this trade says to me is that Greg Schiano is trying to come in and clean up this Tampa Bay Buccaneers franchise. He doesn't want guys who are getting in trouble off the field. What this says to me is that Greg Schiano wants a team that is smart on the field as well as off the field. I'm not going to stand for guys who are setting a bad example for everyone else in this locker room. And I'm not going to stand for someone on his team giving the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a black eye. That's not what I'm looking to do. As the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Greg Schiano has come in and he's given the Tampa Bay Buccaneers something that they didn't have a year ago. And look, I love Raheem Morris. I think he's an excellent coach. I think he'll be a coach again in the National Football League. I love his exuberance. I love his sheer joy for the game of football. I think his players love it. And I think it really spreads to the whole team. But sometimes people take your kindness for weakness. It happens all too often. He's a nice guy. He's a fun coach. So I'm going to do what I want to do right now. He's not going to mind. And I think that kind of got him in trouble with this Tampa Bay Buccaneers bunch. When things were going great, it's always fun to have that young head coach that gets it, that understands me, because he's a young guy himself. And we can all have fun together. But when things start going south, and that fun-loving coach starts to yell, and he starts to try to get guys to be accountable, now it's not fun anymore. Now I don't respect you. Because you're not the same guy that was fun. You're not the same coach that when I first got here was high-fiving everybody and chest-bumping everybody. Now you're trying to come down on everyone. And I think you have to come into a franchise and slam the hammer down. You can always ease up later. But if you come in and you're a party guy, you want to high-five everybody, chest-bump everybody, and you don't come in and instill discipline right away, and then you try to do that later on, it's too late. Can't do it now. Guys aren't going for it. And so Greg Schiano is coming in, and he's slamming the hammer down immediately. I think what this trade says is that, look, either you're going to ship up or we're going to ship you out. We don't have time for the off-the-field distractions. Not to say that Q2 since his arrival has been a distraction in that Tampa Bay Buccaneers locker room. But we know he still has a pending trial for his gun possession and waving his gun around and him and his mom doing all of those things that they do off the field. We don't have time for it. That's not what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be under Greg Schiano. And so he's going in and he's trying to clean up this team. He's making an example out of Pt2. And so that's what a lot of these head coaches are doing. They're coming in and they're cleaning up all these messes. Because what happens when you inherit a bad football team, there's a lot of messes to clean up. You grab your mop, you grab your broom, you grab your paper towel, and you go in and you start cleaning up messes. You sweep up a lot of the debris that was left from the old regime. You start cleaning up messes with your paper towel, and then you mop over it with your mop and you shine it up. And that's what he's looking to do. He's getting rid of mess makers in the locker room. And that was the biggest mess maker in the Tampa Bay locker room. And so we're going to see what impact that has on the Buccaneers moving forward, because he was one of their better corners on their team, if not their best corner on their team. And they're a team that needs help at the corner position. But his actions off the field trumped his play on the field, and Greg Schiano saw this as a move that they needed to make to clean up this locker room and to let the rest of this locker room know we won't stand for anything other than guys who want to play football and who are going to be smart, not only on the field, but off it as well. And that's going to do it for this episode. I thank you for joining me on this Friday episode. It's a long episode. It's always long on Fridays. There's a lot to get to on Fridays. After I'm done, you'll see what I did in the Pick'em Weekly this week, as well as all the past weeks. And you'll see what I look to do this weekend, as I've given you all my picks on this episode. So you'll see every pick that I made this week as I look to avenge that lackluster week I had a week ago. And I started off on a good note as I got a win on Thursday. So I'm looking to do big things, and hopefully I'll come back to you Monday talking about how I had a successful weekend and I'm going to Monday night with a chance to win the football pool. That's all I can hope for. Again, drop something in the inbox. In the lab room at gmail.com is the email address, is the inbox. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. In the lab room is the Twitter and the Facebook page. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter. Also, the most efficient way to get your hands on every episode that I do is by subscribing to me on YouTube. The YouTube tag is Louie T. Louietee. Can't find it? Type in the lab room, week, WK, and pick a week, 1 through 9. You'll see an episode pop up. You click on it. You click on the Louie T tab. Subscribe to the page. You'll have every episode I've ever done at your disposal. And so that's it for this episode. It's been a long one. I enjoyed it. I hope to enjoy even more my success this week that I'm hoping to have. I hope you enjoy your weekend as I will. I hope I enjoy my week even more by being successful on Sunday. I will enjoy my weekend that much more if my Sunday picks prove to be the right ones. But nonetheless, you have a great weekend. Enjoy it. Enjoy the National Football League. Enjoy your weekend. And as always, have a good one. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the football. I'll see you on Monday.
in the